Ranvi Madan is a fellow in the foreign policy program at the Brookings Institution. She's also the director of their New India project. She says that the India's leadership was pleased with the outcome of this week's 6th annual BRICS summit.
The Indian government has definitely portrayed it as a success for at least a couple of reasons. One, they've called out the naysayers who said that these 5 countries would never have been able to achieve the formation of this bank, and so they think this in itself, which will serve, this new development bank, will serve as a additional alternate voice, supplemental voice to the existing financial architecture, and will be more representative. And that's the second way India sees this as a diplomatic success, that they've got what they wanted in terms of a one country, one vote principle installed in the system. And there had been some concern that because of China's economic heft, it would offer a greater contribution and therefore have a greater say in this institution. And so the Indian government has said that that is not going to be the case. Having said that, detractors, on the other hand, have questioned whether this bank will indeed be dominated by China, not just because of its economic heft, but because it will get to host the headquarters, which will be more permanent compared to the presidency that India has got for 6 years, but also whether China will really end up setting the priorities for this bank. And then there are others in India who have questioned whether this is the best use of resources. India will be contributing about $10 billion, whether it's the best use of resources for the Indian government at this point.
Now, for our viewers around the world, you're an expert in this particular issue. Perhaps you can give us a 30 or 45-second lesson on the relationship between India and China on 2 particular tracks. One, political, second, economic.
Sure, and I think you've defined essentially what the basic point about the relationship is, which is that there are elements of cooperation as well as competition and some elements of potential conflict in the relationship. On the political side, it's been slightly more fraught on the bilateral level over the last 60 years. There's been a border dispute between the 2 countries. Having said that, more recently there's been cooperation on the economic side, where you've seen both bilateral trade and investment links being established. But even there, one of the things that I think both governments will focus on is ensuring that this economic cooperation continues at a time when, frankly, there's been more friction on this side with the trade deficit between India and China in China's favor, as well as kind of investment not going as far as both sides had hoped. So I think one of the focuses of the relationship will be for the 2 governments to deepen that economic relationship and make sure it's a little more balanced.
There's been so much expectation, and you alluded to that as well, as to the future of India with Modi now leading the charge, at least economically. And whenever that happens, I always wonder, perhaps, does expectations perhaps get too high? What is realistic? What's a realistic goal for Modi to achieve over the next couple of years?
I think expectations, as you said, are definitely high. I think the government knows that. I think one thing they've been trying to do is temper expectations a bit, and you've seen this with the recent budget that they announced. There was some disappointment from some quarters, which said that the kind of expectations they weren't met. Having said that, one of the arguments that the government is making is give us some breathing space, give us a few years to actually turn the economy around. And what you have seen is that sentiment has already turned. So they've met the expectation of, say, the business community, both in India and the United States. You've seen Indian business sentiment saying that they're much more interested in investing in their own country than they were perhaps even a year ago. Foreign direct investment, the figures that have come in already show a bump from last year, as does FII investment. So you've seen a turn. You've seen some say, okay, maybe they haven't met expectations, but over the next few months, the business community, but also finance ministries around the world and trade ministries will be looking for certainly more signals that they are moving towards the right direction of kind of opening up the Indian market, but also domestically just instituting some reforms on the legislative side, but also institutionally.